Welcome to Imperfect in an Uncertain World, resources for living with intent and purpose. Today I'm going to ask a question, and that question is how can we become blossoms of hope in a desolate land? It all begins with a shift in attitude. Begins with looking for the positive and identifying the positive. So I'm going to start with saying that I have got a good feeling. No, I have a great feeling. Things are changing. Um, things have been really rough for a while, but I believe that things are beginning to change. With courage, we are shining our lights on our individual and collective imperfections. And by imperfections, I mean those things that we need to change. I will tell on myself an imperfection that I have is I am not the most patient of drivers. And so I know when I get in the car, I spend time reacting instead of responding. And so what I ask myself is how can I shift to a more responsive driver as opposed to a reactive one? So what I just did was name it. And when we name our imperfections, we find ways to heal. And then through these actions, individually and again collectively, we are growing and transforming into who we are meant to be. So we can't stop at the realization that as we change, the world changes. When we begin to change, we've only taken a few steps out of that arid, desolate field that's really filled with attitudes, beliefs, and judgments that have caused the drought in our lives. Now, some of those attitudes, beliefs, and judgments are nuisances, while others are real barriers that prevent us from living from the fierceness of our heart. And so, no matter how small or how great those attitudes, beliefs, and judgments are, they really stop us from living authentically. So, if I want to be a being of compassion and I get in the car and I'm an angry, reactive person, I'm not really able to be compassionate. And that will bleed over into the whole of my life. And so, from the recognition of the unsustainability of an antiquated system, I'm going to talk collectively now, grows the delicate, fragile sprouts of a movement. And so, even if you want to say, well, gosh, I don't want to be collective right now, Vanessa, I want to look at who I am individually, most of us are living in an antiquated system. It's just not working. We've got to be flexible. There are parts of it that are not working. We've got to be flexible as we find ways to move forward. We have the momentum at this point, but we need to transition. And that is a transition from a movement into a way of life. And in order to make this transition, we grow the roots of the movement deeply into our own individual gardens and into the collective garden. We make changes in such a way that the movement actually does shift into a way of life. We do it instinctually, intuitively. And it's through our awareness that the roots it's through our awareness of the roots of nonviolence that an equitable way of life really can begin to grow. Now, about 3.5 years ago, I began to use the hashtags in this together, and then the second hashtag, compassion in action. And I was using those in all of my social media posts. I think the time more than ever calls for us to use both of those hashtags, to really embrace them both. It's an awareness of the uncertainty and the malice that threatens to topple our fledgling movement. That's what's necessary. That awareness is necessary to turn from a self-focused life to one of working collectively, communally, in community. Now, the next step is to form a response that binds us to one another through acts of compassion. So you might be saying, okay, how do we do it? Give me some practical steps, Vanessa. So how do we move from a movement into a way of life? As with everything, you begin with yourself. We reflect upon how the external world resonates in our internal world. Now, I will tell you, while external events may in no way mirror what's going on in our internal lives, we notice that the vibration or the resonance from what's happening out there is breaking free something else within us. And so we identify the cracks and the plaster raining down upon us. We identify the many earthquakes and how they're creating fissures in our soil. And then we create a compassionate response to this resonance. So that's done through a period of reflection. The next stage is that we introspect. We use our logical, analytical mind. So we become aware of how we're uncomfortable with prior reactions or even prior responses. And we name how we react to the external world, which is something that I did earlier. And then we develop strategies to shift from reactions to response. And so for me, what I will do is I'll deep breathe when I get into a car. I will consciously slow down if I see a car trying to merge. And that's a way of me shifting my reactions to responses. So each of us chooses a response that draws us out of our comfort zone while growing our sphere of influence. And that's what is vitally important. That what we're doing is that we are tailoring these responses to ourselves. Finally, we integrate what we have learned in reflection and introspection into the way that we live our life. We live knowing that each of us has an opportunity to be compassion in action, and that compassion in action reflects that we are truly in this together. Now, perhaps if you don't have the great feeling in this moment, you will in time, and that will come as you live a life of response. So I want to thank you for listening to how to blossom hope in a desolate land, how to create that beautiful garden. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. There are more resources available at intentandaction.com. That's intentandaction.com. If you'd like to schedule a coaching session, an intuitive conversation, give me a call. We can set that up and get you on the road to blossoming hope. Thank you and have an awesome day.